Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy.
Pandemonium swept through the Coalition Council chambers. 72 out of the Coalition's 81 member species were represented on this day. Questions, insults, tirades, and a litany of what the hell is going on overwhelmed the translators. The elected Master Councillor lifted a small bell with a tentacle and rang it against the striker built into the podium. The bright ring echoed through the chamber, gaining volume until it drowned everything out, only quieting after all voices fell silent. "This body," the Master said, "is not the place for such undignified behaviour. The Councillor from Terra will be heard. Then you may ask questions or add comments in a civilised manner. Councillor, if you may." A small woman with mahogany skin and sad brown eyes ringed from lack of sleep nodded. "Thank you, Master Councillor. Thank you, fellow councillors. This is not an easy thing to say, so please, allow me the time to get through it. I'm glad to see the Wyron delegation here, although I notice their allies, the Darrick and the Calciate, are not. I will not let that deter me. 16 times Terra has orbited her star since advanced secrets were stolen from a lab on Sol 4. During that time, we tried everything we could to get this body to respond and have the guilty party punished. We begged and pleaded with the Council to help find the culprits, and the Council did nothing. When the panic calls for help started coming from most of the member species planets over the last 5 orbits of Terra around Sol, we heard them. Volunteers left Terran space to answer the call, to help. None of you welcomed the help. Many of you actively tried to keep the Terran volunteers out of your space. No doubt because you thought you could hide the fact that you were building from stolen plans. Still, the Red Crystal volunteers came, snuck across borders, and helped everyone that they could. They also taught them how to help others. We thought we had done everything we could for them, until 18 volunteers were abducted in Wyron space, 12 in Darrick space, and 11 in Calciate space. 41 Terran citizens disappeared on the same day, in Wyron allied space, hundreds of light years apart. We begged this council to take action, sanction those who violated the council's treaties and held our citizens hostage. You did nothing. The small woman looked down as she breathed deep. She wore a stern look of determination as she looked back up at the council chambers. This body, this council of sapient beings, did nothing. Last week, the remains of the missing volunteers were dropped by a Calciate freighter on a Terran station. That freighter was stopped before it could leave the station. Inside, it held Wyron military communications equipment, a cache of weapons, and a combined Wyron, Darrick and Calciate Special Operations Squad. The ship was retained, but the people aboard were sent home in accordance with the treaties of this council. 41 Terran citizens, Red Crystal volunteers, trying to help others. They weren't just kidnapped. There was no call for ransom or demands. 41 Terran citizens tortured and murdered. If this body does not immediately sanction the members who allowed this outrage and continue to shelter the perpetrators, Terra will be forced to take military action against them. She waited for the gasps to die down. And anyone who provides aid to them or attempts to thwart her aims in this matter. The sound of tablets chiming held sway for a moment before the Master said, "The delegate from Kuron. Fellow Councillor," the crab-like alien said, "I fear that your incendiary speech may result in sanctions against Terra. Surely there is a peaceful way to resolve this issue." "Thank you," she said. "I hope this body will do something to that end today. If past actions are anything to go on, however, I hold out little hope. We appreciate the constant support the Kuron have given us in the past, against the overall swell of indifference of the Council towards our affairs." The Master said, "The delegates from Wyron." The trilaterally symmetrical alien stood, its 3 arms outstretched. There have been no tortures or killings of Terrans in Wyron space. In fact, the last Terran to step foot in Wyron space was long before you lost your precious plans. You waste the Council's time on what could be handled in a simple monetary transaction. I have verification, the small woman said, of the last known location of every one of the volunteers that were killed, including the ones that were on your capital planet. Isn't lying a little beneath someone of your position? The Wyron delegate shook in laughter. Okay, I will concede that 20 pieces of Terran tech were captured in the capital and disassembled in order to determine whether they were spy platforms. We can cover the cost of replacement, but in the future do not allow your tech to wander without an operator nearby. The woman's face darkened. Fellow councillor, or should I say, Brithigman. Yes, I know your name. They were not spy tech. They were sapient AI and full citizens of Terra, as you knew when you first captured them before you began your torture. The recordings within their bodies made that plain in our post-mortem examinations. So they were spies. There's no way they were sapients, though. They're just machines. As are we all, the human said. Our machinery is just biological. It doesn't make it special. The Wyron turned a full circle. Wyron will give Terra 5 million credits to repair their machines, and we will hear no more of this. I call for a vote on the Terran's attempted sanctions so we can get out of here. Several tablets chimed, and the Master rang the bell once more. Would the delegates from Terra please return to their seats for the vote? Tablets chimed all round, and in just a few moments the bell rang again. The votes have been cast, the Master said. Those in favour? 2. Those opposed? 59. Abstained? 11. Absent? 11. The request for sanctions does not pass. The human delegation rose as one, and the small woman spoke. Our thanks to the Kuron for their singular support. We will continue to uphold our agreements, our friends. Since this council will not uphold their own covenants, we take it upon ourselves to do so. Let this serve as our severing ties with the coalition until such time as they can show us that they value the rules they claim to operate under. Those who have trade agreements with Terra that rely on the coalition can renew them directly with Terra, with certain stipulations. The Terran Alliance welcomes all sapients, biological or mechanical. If you don't like your government, we are accepting immigrants of all sorts. Finally, this is a formal declaration of war on Wyron and their allies, including those who provide military support, material, or the means to produce weapons of war to our enemies. With that, the Terran delegation strode out of the chamber, sending messages on their personal comms. Minutes later, the AI riots began on the worlds of the Wyron, the Dakar, and the Calciate, as the Terran warships jumped into the orbit of their capital worlds.
The algorithm reckons you should be watching this video next, and I recommend that you should be always watching my video. So, click with energy! And yes, clicking that does help the channel. Thank you very much. I just want to quickly thank the T5 channel members and patrons. Alithia, Barky, Trygan95, Beauty Cure, Meridian 117, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholt, Jordan Bucksborn, Angry Marine, Albard and Gusta, Savage Patch Papa, and Arcadian.